Welcome back, everyone, for session 4 with Greg Leighton of Chief Maker. Greg, good to have you back. I guess the first 3 sessions have been about dealing with being in stage 4 lockdown. We've worked through routines, rituals, that sort of thing. And the next 3 episodes are going to be focused mainly around coming out of lockdown on top. So Greg's going to talk us through some new habits and tools to succeed post-lockdown and hopefully post-COVID. So welcome back, Greg.
Good to be here, Holly.
Good to have you back. Today we're going to be talking all things vision. Greg's going to guide us through creating your own life vision. But for those of you who may have missed the first 3 episodes in this series, Greg is an executive coach based in Melbourne. So he's going through lockdown with us at the same time. He's coached senior executives from more than 100 companies across 5 continents. And he is the trusted coach of some of the most in-demand C-suite executives and elite sport coaches in Australia. So let's kick things off today. Greg, do you want to get started?
Sure, Holly. Good to be here again, and g'day everybody. Thanks to SSKB once again for making this possible and bringing some different tools to all of us in lockdown. It's been a bit of a week. It's been fascinating. I was talking to my wife the other night saying, we've got all these tools, but it still doesn't make it a perfectly smooth road, does it? I mean, lockdown is just such a foreign concept to everybody, and I'll be the first to admit that not every day is smooth. You still have ups and downs, and I'm always looking for that utility belt moment where I sit there and go, well, that's been a pretty rubbish couple of hours. I've felt like crap, or I'm angry at something, I'm frustrated, and I've got to remind myself, even in those moments, to do some self-coaching and stay on track. But I was sitting there thinking last week, because we sort of had spoken about what the topics might be all the way through to the end. And what we have done over the last few weeks, we did one on building a bit of a playbook to how to respond to negative emotions and things like that. We spoke a bit about routines and rhythms that drive excellence in lockdown and what the kind of routines you might want to use. We spoke a lot about mindfulness, how you might find some time to practice some mindfulness. So these are the kind of things that are really good for maintaining your state in the moment, really good kind of stuff. But when it comes to resilience and really being able to endure testing times over a long period, there is really, in my mind, there's no greater weapon to that than hope. And I think what has happened over this period has been, it's been really difficult to have hope at times because you don't know what the future's going to hold. You don't know how long we're going to be in lockdown. But one of the things that has sustained me personally for more than a decade now has been an understanding that I'm building towards something bigger. That there's a vision, there's a goal for what we're trying to achieve. And I'll tell a couple of stories. One is a bit from Victor Frankl. He wrote an incredible book called Man's Search for Meaning. And Victor Frankl was a survivor of Auschwitz, the Nazi death camp. And he spoke about what it was like being in that horrible place for years on end. And I imagine, that kind of lockdown is just, I don't know how they even got through that. And what Victor said was, in those darkest moments, the thing that kept him alive was that he had something more to do. This was his search for meaning. And I think that's what really has rung true is, as you go through life now, what is the greater thing that you're going to do? Because when the winds or the tides turn or when life gets hard, if you don't know where you're going, you don't know what you're trying to achieve, it's easy to be, what's the word? I think it's easy to be shaken to your core. It's easy to constrict into yourself, right? And so what I wanted to help people do was to create something that would help them persevere when all seems lost or when it's really hard to know what the future might hold. Because now I've been doing vision boards since 2007, and that's a bit about what we're going to look at today. And what I've noticed is that when I sort of get off track, it always brings me back to where I need to go. And I think that's really powerful in moments like this. How did this all start? So in about 2006 and 7, I was working in a government department. And I remember I was a project manager. I had this big program of work going on, and it was great. And I used to get to work early at 7 o'clock. I was a pretty aspirational young fella. And I'd get to work at 7 o'clock. I'd do all my preparation for my meetings for the day ahead. I'd get all my ducks in a row, papers, everything ready to go to all my meetings. And then around 8:30, I'd go over the road and get myself my morning coffee. And then around 8:30, I'd get my coffee and come back into the office. Now, in that particular department at that particular time, most people were still turning up to work at 8:30, which is totally fine. Except when you come back from the coffee shop, I remember this one morning in particular, I was walking back into the floor of the building, around to the elevator shaft, and everybody went into the elevator in front of me. You know what that's like? And as they all go in and they turn around and look at you, and I walk into this elevator, and all I can see is all these eyes looking at me, and there's no one home. There's no life. There's no spark. It's just life's lost its purpose. They don't go anywhere, and all I had was this vision of that was going to be me if I kept this up. It looked to me like anything would be able to knock them over. They didn't have any energy. There's nothing had stiffened the spine or boiled their blood. They weren't motivated. And in a hard time, that's exactly what you need, right, to get out of it. That's more powerful than just looking at a playbook to respond to a negative emotion, right? That these are the kind of things that sustain you through challenging times. And I looked at that and I just saw my future and I went, I got to change this. This cannot be what I end up like, And I thought, wow, pocket protectors, short sleeves, like this is going to be bad if I stick around here. And I thought, right, okay, what do I do? And at that time, I had been reading a lot of self-help books, and I mean, like dozens and dozens and dozens of them. And one of the things that struck me was, if you've ever gone down the rabbit hole of self-help, like it all does start to sound a little bit the same after a period of time. And you got all the different brands, from your Tony Robbins rocking it from the stage to your Zig Ziglars to everyone in between. And these days, guys like Tim Ferriss that play a very different kind of version of the same thing. What is one thing that every single one of them say? You must have a vision. You must know your goals. Like, it's just so hard to achieve anything without having some sort of clarity on what you're trying to achieve. And I want to share with you, you're going to have to not laugh when I show you. This is my first ever vision board. Okay, I'm going to share this with you now on the screen. This one is my very first ever vision board. I hope. Can you see the one? Is this the one you can see? It's got the big eagle on the.
Yeah.
You got that? Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Now, okay. So I did this digitally back then, and it might look a bit funny, a bit silly, but you know what? What this was me, and I'll tell you where I did this. This was in a little coffee shop out near Mount Glorious, west of Brisbane. So just in the hills. Imagine going to somewhere like Mount Macedon out of Melbourne. I went up and had a coffee, and I sort of initially I drew it all, then I came back and I put it all together on my laptop. And these were some of the values or the things that I wanted to achieve in the bottom left: integrity and love and empowerment and health. In the top left was a bit of a vision of what the kind of house we wanted to create. And I wanted to be a pilot back then as well. So I had a picture of a plane. In the top right was my business at the time. I was running a small property business, and that was what we were trying to create. Then there's this thing here where you can see the head with the brain. That was like a mastermind, empowered people roundtable, Center for Human Excellence, and then some physical goals. The Noosa Tri, Hell's Bells, which is an adventure race, 48-hour adventure race, Mooloolaba Triathlon, a Brisbane Marathon, and a desert crossing. Now, what is interesting is this was 2007. Now, within be 2 years, I'd ticked off at least half of that list. So Noosa Tri was done, Hell's Bells was done, Mooloolaba was done, Brisbane Marathon was done. I crossed the Gobi Desert and an ultra marathon there. It wasn't long after that I got involved in my first ever sort of roundtable mastermind, right? This was and all the stuff down the bottom left, all of a sudden, a lot of that started to come to life in my career, right? The property business failed because we didn't foresee the GFC coming, right? The property crisis of 2008-9. But that didn't bother me because I had by then another vision and another vision. I just want to share that one to start with. I'll share another one later that's a bit more up to date because now I've got a family and Melbourne and things like that. But the thing here is, if you ever get in a situation in your career or even right now in lockdown and you feel stalled, you feel stuck, you don't know the way out, you don't have any energy, your future is clear as mud, right? What that means is you end up just going down the vortex of not great emotions, right? It's anxiety, depression, upset. You maybe have a few too many drinks, whatever, too often, Not that that's a bad thing, but maybe, once a week might be all right. But when you start getting towards six nights a week, maybe things aren't going as well as you hoped.
Yeah, probably not.
And I'm sure a lot of us have had more than we normally would and break down. I know not everyone has, but, don't feel bad if you have. It's what we want to do, though, is create a little bit of something that says, hey, right, how do we get out of this a bit? The other thing I want to talk about here, and this is in the downloadable thing, is the downloadable PDF, which you should be able to get off the Facebook link there. I'll just share the screen again and just show everyone a little bit of a poem. This was something that one of my mentors gave me in 2006, and I didn't really get it at the time. It took a little bit of time for it to sink in, but it's this great poem by Edgar Lee Masters. It's called George Gray, and I won't read it all, but I'll just say there's a couple of bits in here which I think is really powerful, right? So I think it's this bit that says, ambition called to me, but I dreaded the chances. Yet all the while I hungered for meaning in life. And now I know that we must lift the sail and catch the winds of destiny wherever they drive the boat. To put meaning in one's life may end in madness, but life without meaning is the torture of restlessness and vague desire. It is a boat longing for the sea and yet afraid. And you might be sitting there thinking, well, right now I feel like I'm moored in the harbour, right? And that... it's a bit true, we're sort of stuck. But what we want to be doing right now is preparing to set sail. Right, in a few weeks or a month or whatever, we're going to be let out of this lockdown. And what would be great is to know where we're going. What is the destination? Like if you were to sit there and say, hey, Holly, after this lockdown, you're going to go on a holiday. Right, what's the first thing you do in your brain is you picture where you might go.
Yeah, definitely.
Right, it's a beach, it's the mountains, it's somewhere, right? You got this vision, right? And if I said to you, what's a vision for your life, for your career? Do you have the same clarity?
No.
And
it's much easier to think about holidays.
Make sure holidays are in the vision, right? It's got to be part of the whole, right? Well, so what I found is hands down, I've met lots and lots of elite sport athletes, some of the best coaches, amazing CEOs on some of the podcasts I do. And I can tell you now, they all have a vision of what they're trying to create. All of them, right? Now, things can go in different directions, right? Of all the vision boards I've ever done, I generally get about 50% of what's on there done every time. Okay? Because what happens is as I get closer, my life changes, my situation changes. Like when my wife came along, we had kids. All of a sudden, the vision I had in 2014 is gone because now I've got 2 kids and a wife in, a pretty short period of time. So that's good. But the thing is, the vision gets you moving and keeps you focused. If you're unsure about what are your priorities, should go back to your vision, because your vision should be telling you what's most important for you now. What's the next most important thing for me to do right now? And when you get stuck in life or your career or your health or your fitness or don't know where to go on holidays, go back to this. All right? It's like the grand plan, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So the importance is let's get a bit of a vision. I want to talk through a bit about what it means, or how you sort of go about it, right? Let me just stop this share. So I've done now 13 vision boards over since 2007. I've looked at all sorts of ways of making them better, worse, a whole range of things, from just doing visuals to just doing words. What we've now got, my wife and I now have, is a vision board which is drawn, right? We draw it together, and then we've got a bit of the written description of what that means, of what life will be like when we have achieved the vision. So where will we be living? What will life be like? What will our kids be doing? Kind of house we live in? What's day-to-day life? Some principles about what we're creating, like less is more, family traditions, love, great holidays, careers that have meaning, this kind of stuff. And the whole idea is you start off, and there's a guy that I met from the US a while back. His name's Mitch Matthews, and he runs one of the biggest podcasts in the US. It's called Dream, Think, Do. And Mitch started this thing where he said, what we need to be able to do is, first and foremost in the visioning process, is remove any barriers or shackles about what we think is possible. All right. I mean, and I think that is so, so important, because if we sit here, at our desks and say, well, what do I want to achieve in a year? You're not going to stretch yourself. Push yourself out 5 to 10 years, whatever feels like something that is tangible for you. And you say, okay, shackles off, nothing holding me back. What is everything I want to be, everything I want to do, and everything I want to have? Okay. The first stage is we just call it the dream stage. Go big. Do whatever you like. Just whatever you want. Whatever you want to be, do, and have. That's so important. So what I would normally do is go to somewhere that's away from everyone, put on some music. It could be inside the own house if I need to be. It's fine. Put on some cool music that's inspiring, that gets me in the mood, maybe have a glass of wine. That's fine as well. And just brainstorm those things, everything I want to be, do, and have. And let that just flow onto the page. You can draw pictures like you saw the picture before of an airplane. I've always wanted to be able to fly a plane. That's something I've always wanted to be able to do. So I put it in, right? I haven't got there yet because of a number of other reasons. It just didn't end up being congruent at the time, but it was on there. That's all right. It's not off there in the long run. It'll still come on one day.
I was going to ask if it's still on there.
Yeah, but it's not on it right now, but I'll explain that when we get to session 2 and session 3 on this, where we talk about chapters in life. Mm-hmm. Right. I've got a very young family now and a busy little business, and I don't need to fly planes anywhere, but that can go out 10, 15 years and still be a part of a life goal. Right. So what we do first, stage 1, is work out what we want to be, to have. Let that create over even a few days if you want to. Let it build up, right? Then what we do is we create, okay, what is the vision now of those things? What is the vision about 5 years from now? And that's when you draw something, or, use some pictures, and just do some Google images and get all the things onto a page of what it is you want to create. And that means you get this 2 sort of stage process of, first of all, just ideation, creation, dreaming, then saying, okay, of all those things, what's 5 years from now? Where do I want to be? Because that is such a huge piece of the pie. So that's the 2 step 1 and step 2. Now I want to get to a couple of tricks here that I've found to be incredibly useful. Now that I've got a partner in life, what we do is we do this process separately, and then we come together and we create a family one. So I've got a bit of a vision for my business, and it is completely separate to our family vision. No, it's one element. Sorry, it's not completely separate. Yeah. It's one key element. Now, my wife and I, in the process of working that out, worked out more and more about what motivates each other, where we want to go. Because if we don't get clear on that, you might end up finding there's some underlying issues that could pop up. Because I'm going this direction, she's going this direction. We never spoke about it. What this means is we're both going in the same direction. And that's fantastic, because now we've sort of had those discussions in a positive mindset, with, with dreaming about the future. And that's really changed the game. So now listen, if you don't have a partner in life, that's fine. Another significant other, that's fine. Find a good friend. Share it with someone who's on a bit of a life journey with you, and ask them for some feedback. Ask them what they think of it. It's such a magical thing to share with someone, because they will always reciprocate with care and concern, and maybe even push you further than you think.
Yeah, I was going to say, would that be a good idea, I guess, for some accountability, to make sure that you're pushing yourself?
Yeah, because, what I said before, break the shackles.
Mm.
You've always got shackles on yourself that are generally illogical, right? Fear of, sometimes you don't even want to write something down, like maybe the house you want to buy, or some sort of event you want to do, or maybe you want to become a painter or something. And you're like, I don't want to put that down. If someone finds out and then I fail, the fear of failure, or fear of public failure. The best thing to do is actually the opposite, is get some accountability and get some help. Because if you isolate on the execution of your strategy, your vision, that's where things go wrong quickly. But we'll talk about that in session 2 and 3 in more detail. Right, now it's about this creation time, right? Holly, do you want me to share with you a more recent one?
Yeah, sure.
I've got more. Now, let me show you. Oh, I think I've already got this open.
Have you upgraded to like some word art on your laptop?
Okay, right. I'll show you the one. This is one from about a year ago. Let me just share the screen. Okay, so this is one that this was, I think, at the beginning of 2020. So bad luck. We didn't quite go to plan as far as some of the things we wanted to do this year. But this is it's got a lot of stuff in it, right? And so we just draw this, and excuse the quality of my drawing, but in the bottom left, there's actually a heart, which is about health and love. And that's me and my wife, bunch of health goals there. In the middle, under it says the Leighton's 2020, you'll see a crest. It's a coat of arms we've been working on as a bit of a family. It's got 4 little elements, right? It's family in the top left. The top right, you can't really see it, but it says a whole bunch of traditions we have. So we've decided that a big thing of our family is creating memories and tradition. So we've got all these little traditions we have with our family and our friends, and they're all in there, right? Includes golf trips and skis and girls' weekends away from my wife and all sorts of cool things like that. In the bottom left is love, and the bottom right is legacy. So we want to leave the world a better place, and we found it as a family unit, right? So that's a little crest we've got. It just tells you a bit about what we stand for. In the top left is a dream to sort of have this lodge, which is further down the track, but it's out in the country. It's a place people can come. If you go all the way back to that first 2007 thing, the Center of Excellence, that is what that is. It's still on here 13 years later, because it's quite a big one to get, right? But it's still there. And I think we're only a couple of years away now. We're getting closer and closer from that. Over on the right-hand side, you can see mountains. It's Falls Creek is in there. This, trips to Sydney to see my wife's family, and a trip to New Zealand for, I think this was going to be for my 40th, which didn't go so well because they put us in lockdown. But that was just a bit of a thing that sort of tells you where we're at. You can see my business chief maker in there. It's got some big, hairy goals, like it says. You can see, and the very left, it says DL's 1M, and that stands for downloads 1 million of my podcast. We're not there, but I think we're like 150,000, so we'll get there one day, right? Yeah. So things like that, right? There's another book we'd like to do one day. There's both my wife and I involved in that business. So these little things that just come through in this as you build it out that really, really bring a vision to life. So as I said, what we do there is we take that and then we add to it a bit of a description about what life is going to be like. That allows me to do some business stuff as well. And then all of a sudden we know where we're going. And it's just it's the fantastic way to connect more deeply with someone, either a significant other or a good friend. It's also one of the most powerful things for getting you through times like this. Because while the one thing I've learned over 13 years is the tide comes in and goes out. There are times when you are rocketing towards some of these goals, and these visions, like no tomorrow, like you're just ticking them off one after the other, right? Other times, like the slow burn, the lodge, which was there 13 years ago, we're still trying to get there. We get closer, we get further away, we get closer, we get further away.
Yeah.
It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing. But we've always got the vision, right? So yeah, that's visioning. So there's a process there in the PDF. Let me just make sure we haven't missed anything when we've been talking about that. All right, there's a whole bunch of things here. It's got a fair amount of just some ideas about the kind of things you might want to include. And I think the final point is when you're actually doing the vision board, if it doesn't feel a little scary, like you're putting down things you don't want everybody to see, it's not big enough. Not pushing yourself into new territory. Now, you don't have to do, be on Oprah. You don't have to do some ultra marathon, all that. It can be stuff that is perfectly congruent for you. The little things that stacked on top of each other are your contribution and what you want to achieve in life. Anyway, that's visioning, right?
Awesome.
Any questions,
awesome.
Helly? Were we getting any coming through, or?
I'm just having a look on the Facebook page at the moment, but I had a question myself.
Sure.
I guess, what if my partner doesn't share my vision of the future? Or if I, yeah.
Absolutely. So important, right? Now, the first thing that is important is that you get to have that conversation now. So there's 2 options. One, you blissfully go along in different directions and aren't aware of the tension between you.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the recipe for disaster, right? If your values and your visions are different, oh boy, that's, and I'm guessing that's going to cause a lot of trouble for people. Now, I get this asked question a lot. The other piece to it is, so hopefully what it means is you can start having the conversation. What it therefore means is, okay, when we start getting into planning how we roll this out, how do you get most of your vision or a variation to it, and me too? So some level of compromise to say, okay, well, we're going to combine and conquer these 2 visions rather than divide.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. And if you take the mindset that, right, Holly's got a vision about what she really wants to achieve, and someone else has a vision they want to achieve. If we both know what they are, combined resources, when we add friends and things like that, maybe we can get there. But if you don't attack the problem will attack you.
Yeah, I guess it's all about communication.
Yeah.
And making sure you're on the same page. Just having a look now.
I've had people say, look, I love doing vision boards, but my partner's not interested. That's all right. They don't have to.
Yeah.
You don't have to do this with someone. You can still do your own one in the end, right?
Yeah.
Communicate as much about what you're doing with someone else, right?
Yeah, definitely. We've got a couple of questions coming through.
Sure.
A really good one, I think, from Emma. How do you handle what feels like failure when you slip off track from your vision?
Yeah. Look, been there, done that, no problems. Like the trick is, Emma, there's 2 things that I want to talk to you about. One is just double check when you have that step back, is the vision still what you want? Right? Because all progress towards an outcome goes like this. There's up, there's plateaus, then you stop, maybe even dip, and you get closer and closer and closer. That's what mastery is. All goals are like that. It's like, if I want to run a marathon, I can't just go out and run a marathon. I've actually got to fail about 50 times first, right? I've got to run 5Ks. And when I ran that 5Ks, I failed to run 6 because it was too far. Then a couple of weeks later, I run 9Ks, but I can't run 10 yet. I've still failed. I haven't got there yet. I get closer and closer and closer. The most important thing is just take stock for a second and say, okay, I didn't quite get there. What's the reason? Like, is it something I'm doing wrong, or is it just I need more time? Am I still growing? Do I need to add some knowledge, some resource, some advice from someone? If the vision is real and the goal is pure, then just find out why you're not there yet, or why you're not getting closer. Sometimes we can get a bit impatient, throw a baby out with the bathwater. It's the worst thing we can do. Other times, it is good to leave something behind, right?
Awesome. We've got another one there, I guess kind of similar. How do you put your vision into practice with existing commitments, from David Burt?
Yeah. Okay. So David, the congruency principle of a vision is really important. I'll often sit down and go, okay, of all these elements, so you'll see in the PDF download, it talks about health, fitness, travel, all that kind of stuff. What you want to do is, if you say 5 years from now, where we want to be, you have to do this little congruency check and say, have I put too much in there? Is that even, like, given where I'm at in life, is that actually achievable? One of my best mates, we're chatting about this exact thing one day, and about purpose and vision. And he said, "Man, I've got 2 young kids. I don't have time for this." And I was like, "Oh, how big are you thinking, mate? Like, your vision right now needs to be family, right? It's creating the exact family that you want to create." And he was thinking, "I've got to do my day job. I've got to start, doing some other work for a charity or doing something else." And all of a sudden, he's being torn apart by his own vision. Now, one of the real pitfalls of visioning is 1 or 2 of the goals are only achievable if you sacrifice all the others, right? And I've met lots of elite performers that make this exact mistake, and it can haunt them for years. So when you look at the vision, and we're going to talk about this in session 2 around creating these chapters for life. So what is the first stage? What is the second stage? What is the third stage, so to speak? You've got to make sure whatever's in that is congruently achievable, right? I hope that helps. Kevin, sort of answer it. Let me know in the comments.
Awesome. And to that point, how can we best incorporate purpose and values into that overall life vision?
Yeah, look, I hope that when you do this, what it really should show you is, particularly now in these times, is what is most important to you. Like if your purpose is why you exist, the way you want to make the world a better place, your values are the things you hold most dear, and the sort of the behaviors you want to espouse in the world, the vision is what you're going to do. Like, the 3 things are so closely linked. If you've never spent any time sitting down saying, well, how do I want to make the world a better place? That's part of the be, do, have, right? Work out in that. Because when you sit down and look at your vision, it's got to make you think, wow, I'm going to be proud of who I am at the end of this. Like, I've really lived in a way that is,
definitely,
you want to get to the end, and you sort of want to be sitting on your porch when you're an old bugger going, gee, I'm really, really proud of the way I went about that. Like, it wasn't always easy. You stood up, had a crack. And you'll only really feel that if you've sort of sat down when you did your visioning, you did it with a sense of purity and good intention. If everything on your vision is just about achievement and aspiration and accumulation, it'll be hollow, right? Because it's got no real depth to it. And to be honest, if that's what happens, 1, you'll never be satisfied, and 2, you'll lose energy.
Yeah. We've got one more from Abby. Is it important to separate your personal and your work vision?
No, I'd say the opposite, Abby. Yeah, I would have them both on the same page if you can, because the main reason is, and I'll give you a good story. So I was coaching CEO once of a very large company, multi-billion-dollar company, and I hadn't seen him in a while. And we caught up for a beer, and just chatting away. I said, "Mate, how's things going? And how's the family?" And he goes, "Oh, it's not good." And I said, "What's happened?" And he goes, "Oh, well, I've broken up with my wife." And I was like, "Oh, terrible. Like, what happened? Are you okay? Are you okay?" And he goes, "Oh, look, mate, look, it's rubbish." By the way, it was his second marriage. And he said, "Mate, you can't really blame her. I'm almost never there." And so what he created, and he knew it, right, in his heart of hearts, was that he had prioritized that one thing, right? And as a result, the others hadn't come together. So you really want these things to be part of the whole, right? And I think that's so important, is just to remember that, and this is what I was saying before about congruency, is if you create these goals in isolation of each other, it can lead to real trouble.
Definitely. That's a perfect example of it. Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, I think that's pretty much all of the questions. We've got some really kind words from Peter Kelly on there as well, which pretty much speaks to exactly what I was about to say. Thanks again.
Thanks, Peter.
For being on here, Greg. And yeah, we've gone Yeah, 35 minutes. So
Great.
we'll wrap that up and be back again next week.
Looking forward to it. So next week, we're going to talk about the next phase of this, which is about how do you take your life vision and turn it into something that works. We'll talk about life scoreboards, life chapters, and just sort of get through the natural process where things aren't always going to go to plan. Someone comes along and releases COVID, like it's just the chaos of the world or your own failures, and how to just deal with that and keep moving towards a goal. Because I've found time and again that, like, if you there's one real principle in excellence which I think is massively underrated. And that is that if you can just stay focused on one or two, like a clear vision for 3, 4, 5 years, and then 6, 7, 8, 9, and you just keep moving towards it, you will surpass everyone. It's like compound interest. Do you know, like in compound interest, you get little bits on top of little bits on top of little bits. But then in the 10th year, the return on investment in the 10th year is enormous because it's compounding on top of all the other work you've done. And if you get in a situation where your life is this direction 1 year and this direction another year and this direction another year, you end up having 20 years that aren't connected. 20 connected years on top of each other is phenomenal. That's the old Bill Gates quote. People massively overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year and underestimate what they can achieve in 10. And I think that's what this is about. So we're going to talk more about that next week. So put your questions in Facebook and make sure you give a thumbs up to SKB for making it all possible.
Awesome. Thanks again for another great session.
Thanks, Holly. Awesome to work with you guys.
Great.
Cheers. Bye.